gosh, what day is today?
August 5th.
The August 5th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to cover my camera and stand and lead us in that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chrissy or Roger, will one of you lead us in attendance if Wayne's not available?
Be glad to do that. Mr. Wolf?
Present.
Mr. Mundy?
Present.
Mr. Papa?
Present.
Ms. Campins?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'm going to suggest that we discuss the meeting minutes, and then we'll also stop and acknowledge if there are any audience members who wish to have their participation noted. We'll do that after we review the minutes, just to give people a couple more minutes to join. So with that, you should have received the July 1st, 2020 meeting minutes with the information that we got this month. Is there any discussion amongst the group about that? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the July minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Is that Mr. Papa is the second?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Roger, will you help us with a roll call vote on that, on the approval of those minutes?
Yes. Mr. Jones?
Present.
No, you're supposed to say aye if you approve the minutes.
Aye.
Ms. Campins?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Mundy?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Thank you all. The meeting minutes are approved. Now I'm going to stop briefly, and I'm not sure if either of our staff members can see if there's audience participation that we should acknowledge at this point.
We'll give the audience just a moment to raise their hands for those that want to be acknowledged. We have some hands going up. I'll wait just a little bit longer. We have Carol Lamb, Karen Supple, Kathy Giles, Mike Andreoli, Anne-Marie Boyvish, Doug Simon, Sandra McCormick, and I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce this last name, I'm sure, D. Kudis, K-U-O-D-I-S.
Very good, and welcome to all of our community members. With that, we will turn over to the next on our agenda, which is continuance requests. Are there, please raise your hand if you are on our agenda tonight and you are going to ask or would like to ask for a continuance. And I mean virtually raise your hand.
There are no hands raised.
Very good. Then we will move on to new business, which brings us to docket number 2020-17 DSV for 5457. Let me rephrase that. For the property located at 5457 South 700 East. Can we promote the petitioner forward, please?
Hello, can you all hear me?
This is Mr. Dane?
Yes.
We can hear you.
All right.
Mr. Dane, will you please, in your words, describe what is in front of us tonight?
Yes. So my fiance and I have recently moved here to this neighborhood in Zionsville, located at 5457 South 700 East. And our plan is to build a pole barn here. We moved in, there was a dilapidated garage that was in pretty poor shape. So that was our first line of business, was to tear that down. And our goal with this house was to build up this pole barn, expanding what was already there by footprint and then going up. So we need space to store our cars, lawn equipment, as well as our hobbies, such as my automotive hobby, and trying to make some space for like entertainment area and for our home offices. So right now, this house that we moved into is pretty tight, and we have made our offices and the additional guest beds or bedrooms. We were looking to move those out to that space should it be approved. I'm not sure how much more detail I should go into here for you all.
We'll probably get into some more detail. So if you are comfortable with that explanation, I am. If you mind, I've got a couple questions for you.
Certainly.
So you mentioned some potential office space. Is your intent to obviously have power, HVAC, plumbing facilities in this facility or in this barn?
Yes, that is the plan. I'm not sure if we're going to do window AC units yet, or if it's going to be a central air unit, but that upper level will have planned air conditioning. Plumbing will be on the first floor with just a wash sink and a toilet. I think that is the extent of AC and plumbing.
Okay. And then you mentioned earlier there was I believe you used the word dilapidated barn on the property. What was the size of that barn?
I believe it was 38 by 32.
Okay, so the footprint it took
Sorry,
was
32 by 48.
Okay, 32 by 48. And this new structure that you're proposing what is the footprint of this new structure you're proposing?
38 by 54.
38 by 54. Okay.
So the idea was to go out 3 foot from each wall.
Okay. And so have you reviewed the staff report?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the staff has some concerns, and we're certainly going to have the opportunity to hear from them directly, but they have some concerns about the size of this particular structure. Mm-hmm. Can you articulate why the size that you have asked for is necessary?
Sure. So the idea is, well, I'm an automotive enthusiast, so I have a small collection of cars and I like to work on them. So that was the main plan, was so that myself, my fiance could have our daily vehicles, if you will, and then my small collection of cars that I work on. So that would be the primary area for the lower level, as well as lawn implements such as a mower to take care of this 1.5 acres. And raising up vertically, I would like to have a lift for said cars, and that requires a good amount of headroom. Additional with that height is the second floor area, which we have planned for, I believe it was 30 by 38 square foot on the second level, which would be like a entertainment, air quote, man cave, if you will, area, as well as space for our offices, which were located in, I think, a 10 by 12, two 10 by 12 rooms off in the corners. So that would give us the vertical height as well as the floor for my automotive needs.
And in Exhibit 5, and I'm not going to hold you to that, it's just really the renderings of the building. I see a couple garage doors and maybe an entry and exit door, but I don't see any windows. Is your intent to put any windows in the structure?
Yes, we have planned with the builder to have 4 windows installed. So 2 of those windows would be on those office rooms, and then 2 more in the upper level. And we've discussed putting some more in the lower level, but currently we are billed for 4 windows for the upper level.
Okay. And the property we're discussing looks like it's pretty dang close to 1.4 acres.
Correct.
Fellow board members, what questions do we have for Mr. Dane?
You mentioned an office in this structure. Is that, do you work from home, or is this a side business as well? Or
Yeah, it's, I plan to, well, I have been working from home for quite a while. My fiance as well. I'm a software engineer. She's a CPA, so we do all of our work remotely as long as we have internet connection.
Okay.
So now that we moved to this area, it would be nice to have that space since we moved out of a larger house where we had space for that. We wanted to get a little bit farther out from Indianapolis, so we could have some land here. So yeah, that was the plan, is to continue working from home out in that space. That way we're not taking up our guest space. So if friends or family would like to visit, I'm not putting them out at a hotel, or I could just, invite them into my home.
Okay, thank you.
I drove by the existing house earlier today, but I forgot to note it. Does it have a garage?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay.
It did at one point, and as I mentioned, it was very run down. There were animals living in it. It was quite disgusting. And there was a lean-to behind it that had all been demolished.
I mean, does the existing residence have a garage? Or was it always this outbuilding?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Is there an attached garage to the house?
Oh, no, there is not. We believe at one point that there was a attached garage to this house, and it had been remodeled into what we think is, well, our now master bedroom. I do not know at what time that was done, though.
Okay. And then are you on a septic out there?
Yes, I am. So I think I put in one of my statements that on the south side of the house is where our well is located, and on the northeast side of the house is where our septic tanks sit. So if we wanted to ever improve our square footage of this house, I just don't think that's possible. A 1960 house, the foundation isn't the greatest, and those two items also are kind of stopping us from expanding.
Do you have any landscape plans for the proposed pole barn?
Yes, so that's a good point. So we are working with some people right now to get some new asphalt laid down. So currently it's kind of grown over gravel drive. So we're going to be having that asphalted and then mulched around that side. And then probably have some sort of shrubbery, at least in the front of that pole barn, to make it look a little bit nicer. I had seen some zoning items put through for landscaping. I didn't know if that would require more approval depending on the amount of land that it actually takes up, but I don't see it taking too much more than what's already in the drive.
I think you can landscape to your heart's content. I don't think that anything's required in that respect.
All right.
Neighbors and others nearby might appreciate it.
I think they would. We've already gotten compliments that we, mow the lawn, better than the previous resident. So that would be great.
What happens to your plans if the building is smaller?
Oh, yeah. I think our long-term house would end up probably becoming a short-term house. Our idea with moving to this area was that it had the land that we could expand on with no HOA. We probably should have done a little bit better research up in advance, but we thought that we were able to improve this land as we saw fit with, without much damage to the area around it.
So you weren't aware that there were limitations based on square footage and things for accessory uses?
Correct. Square footage, I had no idea on that. I knew that, you couldn't zone a business here, and that was perfectly fine, but I was not aware of the square footage or the height.
And the height, to go back to that one, the height is necessary because you intend to put a car lift in?
Yes. This is a ranch house. It stands at 14 foot tall, I believe. So it's really difficult in the first place to build a garage that is smaller than that, especially if you want to have anything more than 10 foot of headroom.
Are you on a crawl space or a slab or basement?
It's a little bit of both. It's a crawl space house, but we believe, like I mentioned, the side that we think was the garage, that part is slabbed.
You do not have a basement?
No basement.
Any other questions for the petitioner at this particular time?
Real quick, the previous building out there was how big again? The
48 by 32 is the previous garage size, I believe.
You stated earlier that the previous building was 32 by 48, or what you just stated, and the new building you intend to build is 38 by 54, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll ask for remonstrators. Seeing no one get excited. Thank you, Mr. Dane. We're going to continue our conversation. We'll probably have a few more questions for you in a minute.
All right, thank you.
Are there any remonstrators who want to raise their hand virtually to either speak for or against this particular project?
Mr. Wolf, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. I guess that would move us over to the staff report.
So I'll check my audio here. Am I back?
You're good.
you're back.
Okay. Certainly, I appreciate the time there working through a few different hitches with my home internet. Certainly appreciate the petitioner's presentation this evening, and certainly staff, recognizes the needs for this type of project. Certainly, staff has a thoughts on the size as outlined in the staff report. We are supportive of a smaller building. This is dictated generally by the size of what we see in the area, as well as just the general historical support of how we have supported accessory buildings. But again, staff is supportive of the petition in part, and I'd be happy to answer any specific questions, and certainly Chrissy here as well to speak to any other items that can be of assistance.
Thank you, and I do have a few questions. So starting off with, we had, how is the height, can you describe what they're accountable to for the height? Are they being hindered because they have a ranch home?
That is correct. It's the height, our zoning ordinance predicates the height of the accessory structure, that it does not allow it to be, it must be subordinate. And so certainly if you have a ranch with a slope that's 312 or 412, and you certainly want any sizable accessory garage, you'll probably run into some challenges.
And then so I think I can work my way through the height, but as we think about the size, we had a I don't want to say similar. We had a petition of like-minded petition just last month. I think there are a couple key differences between this. One is the zoning is different, but the other one is the lot size. And as I recall that conversation last month, the petitioner was confused that he thought maybe the size was appropriate for the acreage they had. Would you, as the staff prepares their analysis, is lot size a factor, or is it considered in your analysis?
Not per the zoning ordinance. Certainly it would be, this is what we got into last month in the concept of form-based code, which the town currently does not have in our ordinance. We have more of a what's called Euclidean way of managing that. But no, the lot size technically does not come into consideration.
So if we go that route, hypothetically, if they had a much larger house, well, then you get into a lot coverage issue. I suppose I could tuck my way into the way we manage that in other ways. Okay. Okay, very good. Any other questions for the staff?
Well, Mr. Wolf,
John, more to your comment. Yeah, I think if they had a larger house, there wouldn't be variance, correct? To a point that works. Now, when they've got an 1.5 acre lot, they've got a long way to go to get to the lot coverage issue.
I believe the lot coverage is 60% allowance in that zoning.
Yeah, so I mean, then you're talking basically an acre of house. I don't think they have anything near 45,000 square feet planned, correct?
Correct.
But it
Would be
is-
nice.
But the core piece is the difference between the existing home and the proposed pole barn, correct?
Is that a question for Wayne?
That's a question for Wayne.
Right, that's the core issue. It's the relationship between the two structures.
Okay. The other thing I noticed when I went out there is it's surprisingly wooded. The aerials don't make it look like it, but this building wouldn't be particularly visible from any of the streets, either 700 East or what's the cross street, 500?
That's correct.
And
Are there any other questions for staff before we move on to discussion amongst ourselves?
I have one, Mr. President.
Certainly.
Wayne, so in the calculation, the accessory use square footage, you got 1,200 square feet as the second floor loft. And I guess my question there, maybe it's not a question, is if I understood, when I was trying to understand how these rules are calculated when I first came on, I think we talked about that is counted or not counted based on the access to the second floor. So it looks like the drawing there, typical like house stairs going up there, and that makes the 1,200 square feet countable. But if it was a different kind of access, you wouldn't count that, and they would be under their allowed square footage. Is that right?
Right, you're seeing a staircase that would dictate it's counted. Chrissy, can you jump in and just describe, in your experience, what allows us to not look at it in this strict of a fashion?
Yeah, yes, historically, and in my experience, if the upstairs area or second floor area loft space is accessed by a ladder or a pull down attic access, then we wouldn't count it. But if you can go up to it with a full staircase, then it's considered to be space that could be finished and used on a daily basis, and we account it.
Yeah, and that was my understanding, but it also makes the difference in this case as to whether they're have the square footage by right or need the variance, right?
Exactly.
Really coming down to the composition of the stairs, if you look at it that way.
Correct. Yes, I think if the second floor wasn't there, they would probably meet what they needed to meet by ordinance. I think that's what you're asking.
Well, or if they had pull down stairs or a ladder.
Oh, correct. Yes. Yes.
So if this were a barn with a hayloft that you access by ladder, it would be okay from a square footage standpoint.
Correct, because that second floor wouldn't be counted against the primary.
Can Wayne or Chrissy, can you provide context for, that's an interesting point. Can you provide context to that? So the way I was originally thinking about this was you have, you could end up with a scenario that you have a small home with a gigantic barn, and that wouldn't look appropriate. But what we just discussed was you have a small home, medium-sized home, and a medium-sized barn. But it, so I'm not sure about the, if they take out that second floor, they, assuming the math is roughly correct, they could do it. It wouldn't change the aesthetic of the lot to the neighbors or anybody else like that. But it's because they've added the second floor, it becomes outside of compliance. So then, man, I don't know if I can articulate this question, but why is it that we look at square footage and not lot coverage on those things?
Wayne, do you want me? I believe, and Wayne, jump in here. I believe that the idea is that it could be finished into livable space that might be construed as a second primary, possibly. Is that what?
Yeah, and just backing up, I mean, it's how the ordinance was written and adopted on January 2nd, 2010 from the county. And so it's somewhat challenging to manage this ordinance across all sizes of property when somebody could build the size of shell of building that they desire here, but because they simply would like to walk up a set of stairs instead of use their upper body strength to help them ascend a staircase, yeah, that's a very unique challenge.
Yeah, writing that rule would be difficult to meet all these scenarios. And I understand that. And I understand that the rule is there for a particular purpose. And I also understand that we're here to find if there are exceptions necessary to that. So I understand the challenges. It's just interesting to think about that. And I think Mr. Papa brought up a good point. You take that staircase out and you put in a ship's ladder, and not sure we're having a conversation right now. So. And I was thinking about it in the way that, oh, the building is going to be too large compared to the home on this particular 1.409 acre lot. But I'm not sure if that's the scenario really. So, okay. Any other discussion or questions for staff?
I was just going to sort of interject. A lot of times we look through the findings of fact and it talks about, strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance, results in an unnecessary hardship in the use of the property because, and it's, what we've got is kind of an odd situation. The square footprint of this building is not particularly large. It's 38 by 54, which is a little over 2,000 square feet. But what the issue is that the house itself is kind of modest in size. And so when you do a strict application of our rules and regulations, hence we're getting into this need for the variance. That's whenever Wayne talks about form-based zoning, it's a little more fluid in that it would take into consideration the size of the house, the size of the building, the placement on the lot. But that's not what we've elected. We've elected more hard math, but we've provided this process of variance as workarounds when we have situations where it could be acceptable given the conditions. Hence this kind of strict application becomes an unnecessary hardship because why should somebody be kind of penalized for having a more modest sized home? Does that make any sense?
It does. And I would add that potential hardship is that they discussed the challenge of renovating the house to make it larger. So with both a septic and well system, as well as architecture from 1960s on a one-story ranch that it's probably doesn't have a foundation for a second floor. So
one thing that hadn't gotten included in the record is they did provide 2 letters of support. I'm assuming those are from the neighbors to the north and the south.
Let's see, that would be the neighbors to the north and the northwest, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, northeast.
I gotcha. So basically the 2 people that would have the most to be able to see this.
Right, the neighbors to the north, I believe have been here since this neighborhood was built in 1960 and 1961.
Just to confirm, the new barn is going to be exactly where the old barn was?
Yes, it is. Center of that footprint is exactly the same.
Okay. When I drove by there, there's still a pad out there. Is that part of is that like goes in front of the barn, or What was,
Yes, that was what was previously existing. So it looks like
Okay.
they had a slab for roughly a 2-car garage, and then there was dirt and gravel in the third bay of said garage.
okay.
So the remaining there is, I believe it was cut off at 1 foot on all edges.
Uh-huh.
So it is a reduced slab that was there previously.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Any other discussion amongst the group? Questions for Wayne or the petitioner?
Would you like a motion?
I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket number 2020-17-DSV Development Standards variance in order to provide for the construction of a detached barn which 1, exceeds the allowable accessory square footage, and 2, deviates from the required maximum permissible height associated with an accessory structure in the rural, low-density, single-family and 2-family residential zoning district, R2, be approved based upon the findings in the staff report and as presented.
Second.
Is that Mr. Papa?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to pause right there before we execute on this motion. Darren, you've taught me a few things. Should we be more specific on the height?
I think you're probably okay so long as it's as presented. I
Agreed.
believe his plans identify a height, so you're fine there.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
With that, there's a motion on the floor that has been seconded. We should do a roll call vote, please.
And I will administer that. Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Mundy,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf,
Aye.
Ms. Campins,
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Did you hear Mr. Jones vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry.
With that, the motion carries. Good luck, Mr. Dane, on your project.
All right, thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.
The next item on our agenda is docket number 2020-18-DSV for the property located at 11301 East 300 South. We have the petitioner, please, made a presenter.
I'm promoting Carol Lamb as a panelist.
Ms. Lamb, are you there?
Unmute.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Lamb.
The video's not on.
How do we turn on the video? Start video. All right.
There we go.
Hey, there you are.
Oh.
I'm Rick, and this is Carol, my wife.
Very good. In your words, would you please describe what's in front of us tonight?
Okay, look at your packet. You'll see we're asking for 3 different things here. The first one is a variation on the setback in the front. The second is the fact that we have 2 houses on the same property, or what's considered to be 2 houses. We have a main house and a smaller guest house. And the third thing is we'd like to be able to split the lot in a dimension that doesn't comply with 3-to-1 ratio. Let's see, our house was built in 1888. It's 132 years old. The guest house says on the paperwork roughly 1960 because we've seen aerial photos, which I think are in the packet, of that house sitting next to the main house, and those photographs are from the 60s. But I remodeled it about 15 to 20 years ago, and I think it was probably originally built in the 1930s or 1940s time frame. So basically both of those houses have been there forever for all practical purposes. The property was originally part of a 50 or 60 acre farm. It was 10 acres. Right as we bought it, the original owner split off 2 acre parcels on both sides, leaving us with 6. And we were surrounded by farms, basically, with those 6 acres. Then, like I said, we lived there 25 years. After we'd been there about 2 years, the county came and did a presentation on the road 300 South widening 146th, the master plan all the way from 69 around to the airport or wherever. And it showed that they'd have to take our house because the right of way was 10 feet inside the front of the living room. So we lived there for 10 to 15 years, not doing anything to the property because we thought it was going to get taken and torn down. So that was kind of a real pain. Except the guest house, we got some quotes and it could be easily moved. So we spent about 15 years ago, I spent $60,000 or so totally remodeling that house, gutting it. We added a second floor and remodeled the whole thing. Then along comes, I think it was 2006 when the road expansion actually finally happened, and they decided they didn't want to take our house. And at the time they were only going to do 2 lanes, which it is now, instead of 4. And we said, no, we can't live like this. We need to know if our house is coming or going. And so they ran through the calculations, did plans, and we ended up selling enough frontage off the property to do the full 4 lanes with the bike path and that kind of stuff. So it will fit in there. And we were advised at the time that there would not need to be any more taking of additional property. And if you look at this, my appendix F and this site plan, whether you see that or not, that top piece is a ½ acre across the front that we sold to the county at the time, roughly in 2006. Didn't learn until we started going through this process that the county counts the setback from the foundation of the building, but the town of Zionsville counts it from, I guess, the farthest thing protruding, whether it's a porch or roof overhang or what. So we've got a porch on both houses and a chimney and roof overhang on the guest house that are protruding into that 20 feet. So that's the first thing we're asking for. The second thing is to allow that. The second thing is there are 2 houses. R2 zoning allows for a 2-family house, but I think that would be a duplex. And we have 2 houses instead. The one's really small, we use it for guest house, or sometimes we rent it out. And they're side by side, they're tied to the same septic, they're tied to the same well, so we can't really split those, split the property and split those apart. So we want to, and we have a, I can't remember what we call it, LNCU, legal notice.
Legal non-conforming?
Yeah, so we can keep it like it is, but yeah, I don't think if we add a garage onto the main house, which it doesn't have, or anything like that, it would be allowed with that approval that we already have or whatever. So we're asking to be able to retain both of those houses. And we've also had at least one potential buyer claim they couldn't get financing because it violated the zoning rules. So to buy that thing. The third thing, if you look at that same drawing, we've got 2 lots already split off by the previous owner that were 2 acres, and they're long and skinny. And when we bought it, the eastmost part was also, it was staked off so we could sell it. And we were told that we could sell that empty 2 acres if we wanted, but we didn't want to. So 25 years later, we go to look at prospective buyers, and with 5.5 acres, the property is pretty high priced compared to the price of the house that you would put on it in the neighborhood. And we've had difficulty with people getting enough financing to buy that much land for the type of house they want to put on there. So what we're asking for is to just be able to split it, and with the dimensions that I have on this drawing and the ratio of length to width won't be in compliance, but it'll be very similar to what's already there. So those are the three things that we're asking for.
Okay.
I have 165 feet as the width. That's a rough thing because it may be 162 or 164 depending on when I get it surveyed. If you look at my exhibit 6, you'll see that there are already 2 driveway cuts across 146th Street. So I really can't move the line any farther east. I was going to leave the driveway with that east lot and the second driveway with the west lot. But if I move the dividing line to be exactly the 3-to-1 ratio, it's going to go through the house. So that's what the issue was. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm sure we do. Thank you. I think that was a good explanation. So you do have a couple legal non-conforming issues, and I think we want to get those cleaned up, and then we have the separation of the lots. So with that, do any of my board members have questions at this time?
I'm fairly deaf, so you have to speak up.
Sure, sure.
I'm here to interpret.
How long is your intent to sell the property?
The intention is to sell the property either as one, right now it's one whole piece, of course, or split it. It just depends on what a buyer wants. And Wayne can attest to how many people have come asking questions about what they can do with that property. As buyers that want townhomes, I think we can put a maybe 9-house subdivision in there without a variance actually. And we've had a church look at it, but our preference is, and I think our neighbors, is just to split it and have 2 houses there.
And can you, I just want to, having 2 primary structures on one lot is a little unusual for us, but I think you articulated, I just want to make sure I have this clear. They're tied to the same septic system? Are they tied to the same, essentially it would be impossible for you to separate those 2 homes?
No, it wouldn't be impossible. We have all the utilities except the city sewer across the front of the property.
Okay.
So I've already connected gas. We had propane. Both of them have gas meters independent. Both of them have electric meters independent. They're tied to the same well, but I could tie them independently to the water, city water. The issue is the septic system bypassed everybody, us, on this side of the road. It's across the road in the Brookhaven, and it's behind us in the Willows. So I want to keep the lots big enough to have septic, so they would have to be over 2 acres, depending on where I split it, and the driveway where it is, so we don't have to have a driveway permit and don't have to change any of that stuff. I'm looking currently at the potential of running the sewer to both lots. The problem is I can't get a fixed price from anybody. They're all too busy. So I've got estimates of anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 just to get the sewer line from this property down the road to a manhole that's in front of the Willows down towards the elementary school. So if a buyer wants that, then once I can get a price and the contractor lined up, I will certainly do that if they want, as opposed to septic.
Okay.
So are you the only home that is on septic there?
No. All the ones on either side, both of us are on septic. The 2 acres to the west, the 2 acres to the east, we're both built on septics. They actually don't have 2 acres anymore because they had the same issue with the frontage, and they're about 1.8 something acres now, but their septic systems were installed. Those houses were both built about 25 years ago, right when we bought the property. Both were under construction. at that time. So.
And that the sanitary sewer, is that what used to be clay waste? It has a different name now, but.
Trico. Yeah. What was the question?
Is the sanitary sewer, is that what used to be called clay waste? I know they have a different name
Yes,
now.
that's correct.
Okay.
I have about 1,000-foot roughly run of pipe that I would have to install to get from these two lots down to the manhole that the sewer company owns.
Yeah, the cost of that may be less if you get all of your neighbors that are on septic as well doing the same thing, but that's easy to say and not always easy to do.
Yeah, they're okay with it. I think with the neighbors to join in, yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to pay. They want me to do it. So.
But most of the people that we have, prospective buyers, they all seem to like the idea of having sewer put in. So that's why we're considering doing it to sell the lots.
Is this your primary residence now?
No.
It was our primary residence until almost exactly a year ago. We had a buyer who moved in so their kids could start school, and then in the process of that, their financing fell apart. So for them to move in, we moved out. So I bought another property in Zionsville, and I bought a house in Carmel, and we're in Carmel right now and waiting until this property sells so we can have funding to figure out what we're going to do next.
What other questions do we have for the petitioner at this time?
On the exhibit that shows the division of the two lots, the driveway that's is in the lot that you're planning on selling, correct?
We have two driveways. One
okay, you have a driveway to the little house,
yes,
right? Okay,
yes.
And that's carved out on 146. And then you have the long drive that goes back to the barn.
correct.
Yes.
And that's what you're currently using for the larger home?
Correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
So if you sell off that parcel,
if we sell off that parcel, we'll have to bring the driveway from the other house
down the front,
back. Yes.
Oh, to the back. Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And part of the exact positioning of that dividing line is I need to have it west of the existing street access, but I want to have it east enough that I could build the house doesn't have an attached garage.
Gotcha.
If somebody wants to remodel the house and keep it like it is, then I'd like to have the ability to put a 2 or maybe even a 3-car garage on the east side and still have enough setback dimensions so they can do that. And I know at 165 feet, I'm pretty sure I have enough for at least a 2-car garage.
Okay, thank you.
What other questions do we have at this time? Okay, well, let's take a minute and see if there are any remonstrators that would like to speak for or against this particular project.
You're going to take a few minutes for the demonstrators.
Mr. Wolf, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Then that brings us to the staff report.
Thank you. And certainly as Mr. Lamb indicated, we've been talking many years with different parties that are interested in this property. With certainly the items that have been discussed, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. The project would support some level of division, but wouldn't, and it might support the 9 lots as referred to by Mr. Lamb, but by ordinance, a density of 3 units on the 5.5 acres would be a density that would be permissible by right. Ultimately, the discussion centers around, in staff's mind, it centers around the lot configuration. The setbacks are established. The two primaries on the property are established. The LNCU has been granted. The idea of seeking the variance to establish those is to escape the issue if either home was damaged more than 2/3, which the ordinance would then say the property must come into compliance by, and that's something I'm trying to be, again, past escape from. But again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. Again, the density is one that's supported by right. The bigger challenge, as staff sees it, is the infill development that could occur and potential challenges. And as indicated by Mr. Lamb, most likely the neighbors would be more supportive of a layout that's consistent with 3 home sites in total, rather than potential future challenges of another type of configuration.
Thank you, Wayne. I generally would agree with the staff's assessment on that. As I look at the property, the immediate properties to the east and west would be similar in nature. And if we were to do something that would cause a deviation from this discussion we're having tonight, those properties would essentially end up becoming islands, because they would be, something more dense around it would potentially look very awkward, and probably not what they're expecting. In addition, we don't know that, but they're not here they didn't take the time to speak for or against the project. So you maybe can make the assumption that they're supportive of what the petitioner's asking. And also we have a couple legal non-conforming issues that it's always nice to get back into compliance. It does make the sale of the property easier for the property owner. So, any questions for staff?
Wayne, I've got one for you. We've done situations where we've allowed 2 property owners to establish easements and share a drive to a certain point, correct?
Correct. Easements do work well, especially when they're perpetuated by a shared access easement and language that provides for maintenance.
Okay. So if this property line wanted to get shifted a little bit to the east to take advantage of something like that, that it's not out of the realm of something that could be established and would keep a little more separation between those existing buildings and the edge of the property line for the larger lot.
That's correct. And the ordinance, the ordinance encourages shared driveways. Certainly in the future, if someone were to approach the county highway department for a new driveway cut, there'd probably be a conversation about figuring out a way to share existing cuts. Right. But at the end of the day, if somebody's asking for a new cut for a lot that has no other cut, I would imagine the county would feel it would be warranted to issue that permit.
Yeah. Once again, diving back into the findings of fact is the hardship, and this is more or less the fact that this property kind of predates every bit of zoning ordinance the town of Zionsville has.
Or the county, for that matter.
Yeah, so.
Well, Mr. Jones, I agree with that assessment, and I would also add that because of that, it's made it the property difficult for the petitioner's been has a burden of trying to either develop it within those constraints, which is a challenge, or sell it within those constraints, and that's also a challenge. So I think that would be the hardship. Any other questions for the staff or the petitioner?
I have one for Wayne. If this number 2, if they were allowed to exceed the number of primary uses on one parcel, is that stuck specific with the 2 houses that are there? So they couldn't knock those down and build 2 new houses?
Well, the variance as it's granted would be subject to the submittal by the petitioner. So in theory, they would be, if those two houses were knocked down, building two houses back in the exact same footprint and the exact same configuration I would believe is what they would be burdened with. I would suspect somebody, if they really wanted to perpetuate two new homes and knock both down and really, try to yield, a much larger return on investment potentially than what can be achieved otherwise, they'd be coming back to this board for a future conversation.
No, that makes sense. And then sort of along the lines of, I think along the lines of what Mr. Jones was saying on the setback, seems to me that the setback issue was caused because they contributed to the public good. But I mean, I don't see any issue with that at all.
No, the setback comment I was making about is the north-south line, not the.
Oh, no, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was saying I had a similar comment about setback from the road.
Okay, yeah.
That they actually have a problem because they were helping the community out by giving up that space.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be punished.
They actually came back to and offered to buy just enough for the 2 lanes that are currently there. And I said, no, I want to make sure that you either have to take my house or you don't have to take my house. I can't wait another 10 years like this. And so we sold them enough to do the 4 lanes at that time.
Any other discussion amongst the group? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move the docket 2020-18-DSV development standard variance in order to provide for the division of a parcel and the continued existence of primary structures which 1, deviate from the required minimum front yard setback, 2, exceed the number of allowed primary uses on one parcel, and in which the lot split will cause one lot to 3 exceed the lot width to depth ratio of 3:1 in the rural low density single family and 2-family residential zoning district R2 be approved as submitted based on finding of facts.
I second.
Thank you, and thank you. Let's move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Mundy?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Campins?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. and Mrs. Lamb, good luck going forward.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
We appreciate all the staff's work too. They've been really.
They work very hard.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is docket number 2020-19-UV for the property located at 3850 East Whitestown Parkway. Can we please promote the petitioner?
Mr. Nez, are you there? He emailed in earlier that he was having internet difficulties, able to listen. He is still shown.
There we go.
Mr. Nees? We can see you. He's He's either very still.
I'm not sure if you all.
Came through for a minute.
Frank, while we know it would be best to be able to view you, we have also found that at times, if you disable the video, it does help the audio.
Are you there?
Frank, let me stop your video to see if that will help the audio. Oh. Can you hear us?
His kids must use the internet like my kids do.
Oh. Hi guys, can you hear me now?
We can.
Ah, sorry about that, guys. My hotspot on my phone is faster than my home internet. Not wonderful. Thank you.
Actually, before we get started, is there an opportunity if we do lose connectivity? Is there a number he could call into just with a regular mobile number?
Yes, it's 317.
Well, actually, I was hoping that before you publish your number on the internet, I was hoping that we had a number, a conference call number that would call us into this meeting. Is that possible?
Yes, I can write that down.
Roger, does that exist, or did I just make that up?
If you wait one moment.
And I may have it right.
If it was in the email, I can probably grab it off the email.
It was. Let me go ahead and give you the phone number. It would be 1-312-626-6799. And you may be asked for the webinar ID number. That number is 864-721-9946.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we lose connectivity, let's go to the backup strategy and just have you call in with that number. But while we have you, and you seem to be coming in loud and clear, and I don't want to screw this up, is it Knees is the correct pronunciation of your name?
Knez, yep.
Knez. Oh, I had it all wrong. Thank you. In your words, would you please describe what's in front of us tonight?
Sure. Well, I wanted to continue the positivity. I enjoyed that, and thank Christy and Roger for your time and patience and guidance to get to this point. Felt very welcomed and received. What we're asking, I guess at a high level, and I just wanted to share a little bit about ourselves and company to paint the whole picture. I think that's important when, you know, considering welcoming or not welcoming a neighbor into the community, is to repurpose the existing building and lot just as it is, and keep the footprint, everything outside the same. Maybe, you know, make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Keep it up. Update the parking lot, but turn it into utilize it for pediatric outpatient therapy. So to provide speech, occupational, physical therapy to children with a variety of special needs, as well as a comprehensive autism program in that space. So, you know, essentially is to repurpose it or use it, the same structure, no exterior additions or anything like that, and utilize it for our pediatric therapy purpose. So is it okay to share a little bit more about, you know, my wife and I, and then Kids Count, or do you just want to stick to?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Lindsay and I own and operate Kids Count. We're currently in Brownsburg and the Crawfordsville area. We have clinic space there. And we opened that up in 2015. We have 3 boys, 5-year-old son and twin 4-year-old boys. They're fun. We love the town of Zionsville, and spend a lot of time in the parks and restaurants in downtown. I feel humble and blessed to be given the opportunity to lead Kids Count Therapy and our team in the mission of serving together. And we do consider Zionsville as part of our local community. We serve multiple families. From this family, we employ folks that live in Zionsville. And, you know, our focus is always on providing the best quality and comprehensive services to children and families. Also serving them holistically through the therapies, as well as through training, transitions into school systems. We're actually working with the Zionsville school systems now, with a few clients, and it's wonderful. And to provide a quality employment experience. So creating and enhancing and bringing positions that are meaningful and impactful into the community is also important to us. And then, you know, collaborating with folks, you know, at the town level, residents, other businesses, healthcare, schools, to positively impact and give back as much as we can, you know, to the community. And that's through direct services, of course, but we host parent trainings. We host community service events, about 5 or 6 a year at the Brownsburg location. And the lot here at 3850 East Whitestown Parkway is just gorgeous. It's beautiful. And we have no desire to commercialize it. Yeah, I know that was, you know, a point of defining of fact. We want to embrace it for what it is. And I don't know if you all have seen our Brownsburg facilities, but they blend into that area of town and create a more comfortable, welcoming experience for children and families that are coming in to receive our services. So, you know, I think with that, it's a little bit about us and what we do and what our intention is, hopefully, with the towns and the neighbors' blessing, you know, in this property.
Very good. I have a couple questions as we get started. Can you describe the typical hours of operation and, you know, days of the week that you will be working?
Sure. Yeah, we're Monday through Friday, and then 8 to 4:30 for our autism program, which is going to be the primary program in the facility. I mean, the church. We took over, renovated, upgraded an old church in Brownsburg. Similar. I mean, it's strikingly similar. It's wild. You know, and updated it, upgraded it. But churches are set up wonderfully with daycare or childcare or preschool. And, you know, ABA therapy is one-on-one behavioral modification therapy for children with autism. And so we do that in small group spaces and in large group spaces. And Lindsay and I, this wasn't in our plan to do this. We just kept driving by the church and saw it, and it just totally fit that. But from 8 to 4:30, I guess, is to answer that question, Monday through Friday. The outpatient program that we have, because most are school age kids, we are open in Brownsburg till 6, but we're totally open, you know, if that's a negative thing.
Okay. And about how many both employees and children or patients would you have in the facility at one time?
Sure. So children in the autism program would be between 20 and 25, depending on the age ranges. The younger the children, a little, you know, you can add one or two more here or there in a space. So conservatively, you know, we put the 25 mark as like top of the line, but probably more around 20. And it's 1-to-1, so there would be, you know, 40 or 50 adults. There'd be like one office position created, and then potentially a few supervisory positions. So give or take 5 employees based on that count.
Okay, so I want to try to make sure I have that clear. You 20 to 25 children, and
Yes.
then a corresponding 20 to 25 adults, and then 5 admin staff, supervisors, and things like that?
Yes, yeah, that's it, full max, yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. Very good. What other questions do we have for the petitioner tonight? Oh, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself, and Wayne, you never corrected me. Frank, will you please state your name and address for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. It's been a while, I'm being on the computer and connectivity. It's Frank Kinez, 8641 Fawn Lake Circle, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46268.
Thank you, Mr. Kinez. Okay, what other questions do we have for the petitioner tonight?
I have a question. I don't know if I missed it in the packet, but what kind of signage are you going to have? Is
Sure.
it on the building or is it on the street or both?
Where the existing sign is fine. We're a destination type of a company, so like, you know, frontage signage, you know, that doesn't that's not important to us. So I haven't reviewed the Zionsville sign ordinance, but you know, what was there looks appropriate to me.
Okay. Is it going to be comparable to your other buildings, or?
You know, I think I would dress up the brick a little bit, you know, in terms of like the posts there, but the size is fine. And whether it's lighted or not lighted, whatever is there, what, you know, neighbors, you know, I totally, you know, understand and, you know, that it's not in the, you know, a commercial corridor or anything. So we want to respect and be a good neighbor.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question about the number of students. You said 20 to 25, and those were ones who would be there for most of the day. Is that right?
Yeah, they'll be there between, you know, 4 to 7 hours during the day, give or take.
And there's another group which would be school children that come there for a different program or other programs. And is there a number on that?
Sure. So in the packet, the max capacity we'd see would be 100 a week or so. But though, yes, Steve, it would be 1 hour a week, much like a doctor's appointment type of thing, outpatient therapy. Again, that would be an ancillary program, but it is part of our mission. Lindsay's a speech therapist and a behavior analyst, and we just, like our son personally comes to Kids Count 4 days a week for speech and occupational therapy. He's not on the autism spectrum, but, you know, still gets, you know, those types of services. And from a parent's perspective and cost, and I love hospitals. I love, you know, with them, Hendricks Regional, IU, but speech therapy there is expensive. You know, it can be $300, $400 a session, and ours is right around 70. We accept all insurance and Medicaid. So we think it'd be a benefit to the town and into the community, but you know, we can look at capacities based on, I guess, you know, potential impact.
Mm-hmm.
But to put that in perspective, that would be like maybe one speech therapist and one occupational therapist, you know, they carry about 30 children on their caseloads. So that would be about two to three additional employees could be considered in that the 5 additional.
Is there any intention to have outdoor facilities, playgrounds or something along those lines?
Oh, we have them in Brownsburg. It would be something small, not like a big park playground. So there's a deck area off the back that's, you know, surrounded by trees and different things. Like we can make it inconspicuous, or there's a side kind of a U shape that we could put. Actually, that would, I think that's what my wife would prefer. You know, it's kind of hidden from the road in all sides. There's a gazebo that we can take down and put a, you know, in a smaller play area.
Very good. What other questions do we have? Hearing none, and we'll certainly have a chance to talk soon. Are there any remonstrators who would like to speak for or against this particular petition?
Mr. Wolf, we do have 3 hands raised.
Very good.
We'll first promote Karen Supple.
Hello, thanks for hearing us. Frank and Lindsay, we do believe in what you're doing, but we believe in this remaining in R1 zoning, and we do not want to see more traffic on Whitestown Parkway because it's become very dangerous in the past 3 to 4 years. And the amount of traffic you're talking about on a daily basis is definitely not a residential home similar to anyone on our road in any of these areas to have that much traffic on those roads. There's been so many more accidents already, and I do not believe that it's safe to add that onto that roadway right there. It's very dangerous.
Ms. Seppel, will you please state your name and address for the record? I'm sorry.
Sure. Karen and Paul Seppel, 6175 South State Road 267, and that's Lebanon, Indiana.
We've also seen the continuing development in the area with all of the warehouses, and while that isn't a concern of yours in this proposal, we are interested in, again, trying to maintain a rural atmosphere and a quality of life, and allowances to increase more of a commercial atmosphere are something that we're generally not in favor of.
Understood. So I think what I heard, if I could kind of summarize, I think I heard you have some concerns about the additional traffic and utilization of that particular area, as well as sort of the commercialization or the industrial, going away from the rural zoning and into more of a commercial or industrial zoning. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Roger, can you?
Yes, we have 2 more hands raised. I will promote Kathy Giles. Kathy, we'll need you to unmute, please.
Okay.
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, it's Kathy Giles, and it's 6250 South State Road 267.
Okay.
I agree with Karen, definitely from the standpoint of I think the services that this entity is going to provide are awesome, and my greatest concerns are that it may not be the exact greatest location for them. Again, as I probably will reiterate much of what Karen has said, the traffic on 650 has just exploded over the past couple of years, and especially at the opening and closing times that he has mentioned. Gosh, I just have such a great concern for the safety. I read the report that you guys had, or comments that that you guys had made about that there's going to be growth in the area, and I think that we, anyone around here completely understands with our proximity to 65 that there's going to be growth. It just is going to happen. But there, as many complaints as have happened over the past few years about 650, or I guess they call it Whitestown Parkway. I'm not quite sure why they added the Parkway to it, but anyway, there's never been any improvements. And one tire off the side of that road and you could flip your car. So I'm just concerned about not only where the exit would be for this new entity, because it exits right onto 650, kind of at the top of a hill just before you hit that T intersection. And quite honestly, my brother-in-law lives at that T intersection, and I couldn't tell you how many times he has had to re-landscape his front yard from the multitude of accidents that happen down there, especially in the wintertime, and coming over that hill, which the exit for this facility is actually right at the crest of a slight hill, but it's enough to take people sliding on down. So obviously this is a significant amount more of ins and outs out of that driveway. I realized that it was a church before and that you could have had a volume of people, but quite frankly, that volume of people happened on a Sunday morning and a Wednesday night, all times when there was no other traffic on the road. The type of appointments that will be happening for this are all going to be right during the now busy time of of 650.
Okay.
Also, the lighting, quite frankly, that just on a personal level is an issue. It lights up my bedroom, and it always has, and it just for an empty parking lot at night. So I think
so. If I could repeat, you're also concerned about the additional traffic in the area and the safety of that traffic, as well as the lighting. But I guess two quick comments. Thank you for sharing. But I don't think the petitioner is proposing, and I'll get clarification. I don't think the petitioner is proposing to move the driveway. So the driveway is staying where it is. So he's not creating an issue. He may be inheriting one, and that's what your concern is. And also the lighting. We'll certainly need to ask those questions on what his thoughts are on the lighting in the parking lot. So, but the lighting has been there. He's sort of inheriting that problem as well. So, but okay. So you're concerned about traffic and then the noise, or I'm sorry, the light pollution. Very good. Okay. Next.
I believe
I'm sorry.
I believe that's it.
Okay, great. Very good. Thank you for sharing. Next, Roger.
I'm promoting, and again, I apologize for the pronunciation, D. Kudus. If you could please state your name and your address.
Hello, thank you for having us. Can you just confirm that you can hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, this is Star Dairy and Danius Quittis, residents of 6195 South State Road 267. I do want to echo Karen and Kathy as a resident of 267. We really don't want a business that's going to bring in dozens of clients and employees each week right into our residential area. We already have a high speed limit there. It is a dangerous intersection right over there, as has been stated. And we do have concerns with the commercialization since we value our rural lifestyle. That's why we moved here. And that parcel, it was originally a home. It should have stayed that way to begin with. I understand you're inheriting that, but my main concerns would be the daily traffic in an already dangerous area. And like Kathy said, that light that you would be inheriting it lights up our yard every night. And I do just hope in general, based off of the concerns stated tonight, I hope the council will deny this variance.
Okay, so your primary concerns were the additional traffic, additional daily traffic, as well as the lighting.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you for participating in our conversation tonight.
Thank you.
Do we see anyone else that would like to speak for or against this particular petition?
There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. Wayne, before we get to you, Frank, can you, can I take an opportunity to ask you a couple questions?
Yep.
So we had some concerns, as you heard, from neighbors about the traffic. Can you describe, you just said the hours of operation, I believe, were 8:30 to 4 or 8 to 4:30, excuse me. Will most of your customers, patients, children be arriving at 8 a.m.? Is it kind of is it a staggered start, or does everyone show up at 8? How does that work?
It's staggered, and depending on, again, the clients that come in, we have, folks that get there at noon, like they could be going to developmental preschool or school in the morning, come in the afternoon. So it's not everybody arriving at the same time. So it's hard to predict the percentages, but the options are 8, 8:30, 9, right in there, and then 11, 11:30 or noon. So in terms of arrival time in. So it's going to be considerably smaller than our Brownsburg. Like we do in Brownsburg have 110 employees that work out of there, and we serve 70 children. There's a lot of traffic. There's no putting lipstick on that. This is going to be a much smaller operation, and I totally, above all, like I said in the beginning, it's we're a part of the community. I drove down the road, daily back when our kids were going. Our kids go to Traders Point, and we would go down the Whitestown Parkway and then go south on 267. But personally, I didn't experience a lot of traffic there. I don't live there, but just on my daily drive, that's how we would go to work in Brownsburg. We go up to Traders Point, drop our kids off at 8, 8:30, and then swing down to Brownsburg. But totally, like I said, want to respect and value their feedback. But I don't know if that answered your question, John.
I think you did, and you are breaking up a little bit. So I think I caught the substance. The other concern, I think, and this isn't your concern, I think we should address it as a board about the additional commercialization or industrial use in that area, and I think we can articulate how that would be addressed. But the other one that I heard that would be directed towards you would be the lighting. Do you have any, I understand the lighting's there. It was probably put in when the church was put in, and it probably just goes on and off. Do you have any intentions to change or update or?
We can certainly do that. I've not seen it lit up at night. I can drive by. We're actually going to go to Noah Grants tonight, and so I'll swing by, check out the lighting, and we can reduce it. Like it's not important to have the parking lot lit up at night for us. We might do some security lighting or some more downward, less intrusive lighting. Would definitely be something we'd be willing to do and invest into, to respect our neighbors.
Okay, so you would be amenable to updating the lighting to create less light pollution for the immediate and surrounding neighbors?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Okay, with that, I think there should be probably more discussion about those concerns, but we should probably have the staff report at this time.
Yes, thank you. Give a second for transition between petitioner being a panelist and an attendee, just so we do not lose any context of staff's comments. As indicated in the staff report, staff is supportive of the petition. Certainly the topics at hand are the conversion of a former religious facility to a new use. The zoning ordinance is silent on the intensity of a religious use. The staff has no measurement, and nor does the ordinance speak to how many services you can offer per day, per week, per hour. Churches, religious facilities at times provide daycare, have outdoor operations, have uses that are subordinate to the religious aspects of the facility, as well as are at times exempt from state licensing because they are operated under the umbrella of a religious use. Certainly, that is the crux of staff's recognition of this property's and its established intensity, which is an unknown quantity. And so this is something the board is challenged with in thinking about the conversion of this property, which could be operated as a religious use at an intensity that is greater than has been seen before, could be less than seen previously as well, and is, as petitioned this evening, is seeking to be converted to another use. Religious uses are, intense. The use is being described as a described intensity. Certainly, this board can consider a plan of operation and talk about the reduction of the intensity, if that's something that the board would feel is warranted, talking about the number of clients per week, trips per day. There's other items that you can focus on. Certainly this property was developed well before your current zoning ordinance and is certainly not subject to any sort of road impact fees or any other fees that would encourage additional offsite improvements made by the town or the county or Whitestown, for example. That process simply does not exist in your ordinance today. But again, staff is supportive of the continued use of this property for some level of intense use. But that sounds like a subject of a main subject of discussion for you this evening.
Thank you, Wayne. I know the answer, but I think it should be part of our public conversation. If we were to approve this use, what does that, well, let me just say it plainly, that does not affect the neighboring properties, nor does it grant permission or set a precedent for the neighboring properties that they could have similar uses. Correct me where I go wrong, but those properties are still zoned and there's the zoning will stay the same. And if someone were to want to change that to a more intense use, they would have to go through this process or a process similar to this. And so I want to just let all of our participants know in tonight's conversation, this is not establishing a precedent because all of our properties and all of our petitions are unique. And so I respect the opinion that we are concerned that we want it to stay rural, but I'm not sure if this particular petition is going to affect that that position or thought. I think this petition would probably just go along with what was already there, which was the religious church use. Now, that being said, I do think we have an intensity that may be greater at times. And to your point, Wayne, you know, the ordinance doesn't specify intensity. So perhaps if it was a different church type, a different type of church, they would have services every night or something along those lines. And that would be within their right. So, but Wayne, will you just confirm the fact that if we do something here, it doesn't affect the neighboring properties or their zoning?
Correct. Each individual petition stands on its own merits. Certainly a change in use of this parcel does not dictate future outcomes for other petitions and their disposition. That is correct.
I knew you would say that better than I would. With that, what other questions do we have for staff?
Well, I got a question. So it's currently zoned, the property is currently zoned R1, which would not allow a church, correct? Wayne?
No.
Roger, what do you have on the use table?
R1 does permit a church.
Does permit a church?
Yes.
Is a church currently operating there?
No, there's no current occupancy by a religious use now.
When was the last time a church did operate there?
I do not know. I think the petitioner would maybe know better than I.
Does the petitioner know when the last time a church was operating there?
I'm promoting him back to a panelist.
Hi there. Yeah, the church is still operating there. I mean, COVID has crushed them. Unfortunately, they're a wonderful group of people, but they're moving. They're trying to find another space. We believe they've done that. They're actually going to continue their use for 2 months through, I think, October.
We have a non-conforming use that is leaving. Doesn't that mean the property then should revert to being R1?
Mr. Jones, the church is it is a permitted use.
It is? But
yes.
The church is leaving. There will no longer be a church property. In other words, what I'm saying is it's a non-conforming use that predates the R1 zoning.
No, it
So,
isn't.
and a church can operate in an R1 zoned area. But once it vacates, I guess that doesn't mean a non-conforming use is, well, all right, so you're saying the use is conforming, a church in an R1 area, R1 zone property.
Yes.
But I guess that what I'm going after is that, so now we're going to a commercial use, which basically a medical office use is. So it's not really a grandfathered type situation. You can put a church in an R1 zoned area, but once the church leaves, the property reverts back to R1 and needs to conform to the R1 zoning.
Which is why we have the use variance in front of us.
Correct. So basically the issue of it being a previous church is kind of without merit, I guess. It doesn't, like I'm saying, it doesn't sort of convey any obligation for it to be transferred over into some other kind of commercial use because it's built like a commercial structure.
Are you saying that because it is an existing conforming use, which is a church there, that shouldn't have any bearing on whether or not we grant this use variance?
Right.
What other comments or thoughts do we have?
I have another question for the petitioner, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Would you mind, I know you discussed it earlier, but because the issue of the traffic flow came up, could you clarify what all's going on there? Because I'm rereading your letter and it's 100 to 150 children for 1 hour a week, which if that's spread out through the day, that'd be 2 or 3 cars an hour. But then there's this other component. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a time where there's a concentration of traffic?
Sure. I mean, the primary pickups and drop-offs of the 20 children, 20 to 25. Again, we wanted to go worst case scenario, so we weren't, not worst case, but highest capacity. So it would be 8, 8:30, or 9, which there could be anywhere from 10 to 15 children there, right? Or 11, 11:30 and noon. So kids will come partial or full or more full days. The 100 to 150 children, that number includes the 25. So that lessens that number a little bit, if that makes sense. So kids in the autism program get those speech and occupational therapy services. So it's really, I guess, taking that 100 number and reducing that. So it, I guess, decrease the traffic a little bit when spacing them out, per hour.
But outside of the 20 or 25, then those other 75 to 125, those just spread out evenly through the day and the 1 hour increments?
Well, because if the idea is to have one speech therapist, one occupational therapist, and one physical therapist there, and those therapists can carry about 30 children on their caseload. So, if we had the 25 kids, I guess that 100 to 150 number is inflated a little bit. I didn't take into consideration that they're carrying those 25 kids that are there on their caseload. So that would be, an extra, each one of those therapists would see an extra 3 to 4 kids a day outside of their current caseload. So that's about 12 extra appointments a day coming and going on top of the kids that are there full time.
I've got a question for the petitioner as well. What would you anticipate most of your users, the students who will be coming there, where would they be coming from? Are they this is targeting for Zionsville, or in your experience, would they be from 360 degrees around the facility?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what we've seen traditionally. Again, at Crawfordsville, I don't think is apples to apples, but what we see in Brownsburg, right now there's a facility in Lebanon, so likely not going to necessarily attract clients from there, but the Zionsville and Whitestown area primarily. We serve probably 10 to 15 children that live like on a daily basis in Zionsville and Whitestown already. So a good question, Steve. It would pull from the immediate area. So for working parents, it cuts down on, commutes to Brownsburg or to Carmel or to wherever they're taking their children now.
I guess one of the things I'm struggling with is it the petitioner's burden if the road is inadequate for, per Wayne's comment, the church could have a variety, it could be much more intense use than it currently is because we don't regulate or measure to intensity of a church. So if they meet every day, all day long, that road would be inadequate. And they would be compliant. They would be allowed to do that. So what happens if we grant a use variance and that road becomes inadequate? Is that the petitioner's burden?
John, if that question was for me, I missed some of that.
It's just a theoretical question. I mean, we have neighbors who I think have a valid concern that the road isn't safe for, I have not traveled that road at that time, so I probably should. But they have concerns, and I believe they're probably accurate, that road isn't safe for that intense of a use at particular times of the day. Whose problem is that?
I don't know if this answers the question, but I know from a plan commission side, as we're getting more and more of this commercial warehouse development going on to the north and east of these, we go to the developers and require them to make changes within their projects or, work to increase the size and the roads. So typically those kind of, the burdens for access to their site have been falling on the developers to make sure they're doing things to provide for the added traffic. And once again, on the plan commission level, the same statements the remonstrators have made are what they also make regarding these larger commercial projects. There is a general desire to not allow additional commercial businesses to expand away from 65. I understand the dam's been more than busted, but at some point, when do you put it back? And I think that's what the remonstrators are all commenting on, but it's the same thing we've heard repeatedly. Now, if the petitioner wants to take more time and go approach remonstrators and come up with a solution that everybody agrees to support the project versus speak out against it, I'll change my tone. But we have heard repeatedly from the members of Perry Worth Township about, the reason they joined with Zionsville is thinking they were going to get a little better hearing on this. And where are we?
I don't know if I may just say one thing. Larry, thanks for your points. And, going up, traveling that road daily and different things, we would miss the shift work, which I think drives a lot of the traffic north of there with all the new developments in Lebanon and I guess north of there, all those, I'm going to say more massive warehouses and stuff being built. So I guess one benefit of the times and staggered starts, again, talking, you know, potentially less than 20 cars, you know, spread out between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. You know, it's nice it at least misses the rush hour of the big manufacturing and the true commercial and industrial development that's going around that is likely driving, you know, the concerns.
Larry, question. Larry, I haven't been to any of the Plan Commission meetings. Are the concerns number of vehicles, or is it size of vehicles that the warehouses often use to deliver and pick up and transport? Is it one or the other, all the above?
Yeah, it's both.
Mr. Wolf, I just want to make you aware that one of the petitioners who previously spoke has raised their hand and would like to provide a second comment.
I am amenable to that. Please go ahead and promote them.
I'm promoting Karen Seppel.
I believe you want to do it.
This is Paul and Karen Seppel again. To follow on that, the comment that was just made about the concerns, it really is broadly the commercialization of what is a rural R1 zone area. And yes, the traffic is a part of it. Certainly the trucks are health and safety risk because of the size that they are, but it's also just the commercial development, the light pollution, which is approaching us from all sides really. And I appreciate this isn't necessarily creating light, but it is creating traffic. And it starts to hear your comments about the precedence that it sets. The fact that it was a church doesn't give it a non-permitting use allowance. I get that. But essentially it's when you allow a commercial property in, you're starting to make now another commercial entree into a rural R1 area that is largely residential and agricultural. And that is the concern. So again, we don't take exception to the services. It sounds like a wonderful operation and we appreciate what you're doing, but those services could equally be provided in the professional park or in the new development at Anson or in the areas that are really associated for people, traffic, and flow, and be just as convenient to the community. So,
just not in R1.
And that's essentially the comment.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will. I think hopefully we stated it clearly, but we don't have the privilege of changing zoning, so it will always be R1. It's going to stay R1. That is something the town council and people who make our rules get to decide, not us. So we will just look at the individual use case variances, and we do not establish precedent because those are every property is unique, every petition is unique. So, but I think the concern is still, I think you articulated it well, that it is not establishing a precedent, but it is bringing a commercial use into an R1 area. Okay, with that, Mr. Knez, would you, I think, you know, if we do nothing, or if we deny your petition, the light pollution exists and will continue to exist. So in some regards, if we approve your petition, you have the opportunity, and we can hold you accountable to it, to improve the light pollution that is on that property. And I think that for safety reasons, there probably should be some lighting during the winter hours and those types of things, but it could probably be turned off at a certain timelines. And I think, and you certainly wouldn't have security lighting around the building. But I think you could work with the neighbors to resolve that issue and actually improve the issue. But I think I've heard several times now that they're concerned about the increase of traffic. do you think if we gave you an opportunity to continue this petition that you could provide some more information to help work with the neighbors and ease those concerns, or do you think that you have provided your best petition for us at this time?
Sure, thanks. It definitely would work on the lighting. Like I said, being a good and valued neighbor is important. In an additional response, we would not move to Anson or any other commercial side of Brownsburg, or Zionsville. Our model, we do not want kids to feel like they're coming into like a medical office. This fit like just squarely in our mission, and I realize it's going to increase traffic so I don't know that I can help. I mean, I would help band together with the neighbors to introduce other initiatives to help bring increased safety, because it seems like the safety is already an issue, at least being brought up as one. So would definitely want to help any future initiatives, but John, I don't know that any amount of discussion. We're a small family-owned business, in terms of what we can bringing our services in. I mean, definitely open to what we can do, but not sure that any further discussion outside of this will ease the general concern. Like I said, I come down that road each morning, and I don't know. I guess I can mute myself now, but we'll go from there.
Sure. Okay. Discussion amongst the board members. And if not, I will entertain a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion then. I move that docket number 2020-19-UV, a use variance to permit a medical office use, specifically providing outpatient pediatric therapy services, including speech, occupational, physical, and applied behavior analysis therapy as a primary use at 3850 Whitestown Parkway, be denied as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. This is a negative motion. Is there a second to that negative motion? Hearing none, I will entertain another motion.
This is not a motion, Mr. President, but I fully understand that this is not the kind of a facility and services that you place in Anson or another commercial development. I think that I understand the concern about traffic and lighting, but it seems to me that this is the right kind of setting for a facility that provides these services.
I agree with Steve on this. I feel like the building's use, I feel like if we're going to keep going back, if somebody else comes up with another use for this property, there's always going to be, with the parking lot, there's always going to be traffic in that building for that use. And with it being a low-key operation, I think if he works with the neighbors about the lighting, I don't know if there's a traffic study that can be done. I don't understand all that area, but obviously there's concern from all the neighbors out there anyway, whether or not it's a church, a medical facility, or that building has some kind of commercial use, the way it is, or office use. So that's my take on that.
One of the issues with religious uses is they do get a kind of special pass all across zoning and building standards and operational and health and OSHA and whatever else. That is the nature of when you get titled religious. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's how our system works. What we're discussing here is the intrusion of a commercial use in an R1 rural area where we have a set of remonstrators who are opposing additional expansion of commercial uses into the R1 area. Love what he does. It's needed. I understand. I've got good friends that work at some of the horse therapy groups and love it. But the question before us is additional commercial intrusion into an R1 zoned area.
So let's recap. We have, I think, a couple paths. We had a negative motion that did not receive a second. We could make a positive motion, or we can make a motion continue in hopes that and we could give the petitioner some very specific instructions on what we would like to see to make a more favorable petition. And those instructions may include, can you describe specifically the intensity of the use and when and how many and when will the cars be traveling so we can better understand that. I think I heard the petitioner say that he was comfortable with his description as it is and wasn't interested in a continuance, but if we need more information to make a decision, we certainly have that right. Or someone could, and I guess in addition, someone else could make a negative motion. So
I would feel better if I had more concrete information about the intensity and the traffic.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful. Again, I think all three of the remonstrators are on 267. And I have no idea what the likelihood of people using 267 to come to or from this facility if it were approved, but envisioning it as more of a Whitestown, Zionsville clientele, I don't know how much of that traffic goes by their front door. And I don't know that the petitioner would be able to provide that. I'm not sure we could easily get that, but some additional information I think would be helpful in making a decision.
So if we're going to ask for a continuance, I always like to leave the petitioner with some specific asks. And so I think I will have a couple for you, but if my fellow board members have some more information they would like, please speak forward. So Mr. Knez, I think one thing is, would you go by the lighting tonight after dinner? And would you review it and come up with a plan to help reduce the light pollution for the neighbors? It could be as simple as turning the lights off at 8 p.m. or whatever the case may be. But I do think you should consider security and safety. That is important for both your patrons and those around you. So one ask is, can you come up with a plan for the light pollution? The number two thing that I would ask, and I think I'm hearing this from my fellow board members, is could you potentially come up with a document or a set of data that says from 7 to 8 a.m. we anticipate this many car trips into our parking lot. And from 8 to 9, we anticipate this many car trips. And from 9 to 10, so we can see approximately when the cars will and will not be entering and leaving. And I don't know how we could hold you accountable, but it would help us understand the flow of the traffic. Does it all come at once? Does it come throughout the day? And when is the most intense use of that traffic? So fellow board members, is there anything else that you would like to see come back to us if we continue this motion?
And John, Lindsay has entered here, my better half, obviously. But she leads she would be in charge of the layout of the space. And again, this is something we've walked through and we've discussed, but she might be able to offer Steve and a little more concrete from a schedule perspective.
So my background, I'm a speech therapist and a behavior analyst. So, I oversee the clinical operations, but I also weigh in on kind of from an operational perspective on start times, end times, in Brownsburg, just to spread out some of the traffic. We set up 3 different start times and 3 different end times. And I think that if traffic is a concern, that we could look at, maybe even additional start and end times. And the one thing that I really love clinically about this property, when I walked in, I just said, wow, this fits our mission. The house and the bottom of that house is already set up like a classroom. The church area is wide open for a sensory gym and so much green space for the kids, which is really what made me want to say, you need to serve kids here. And the classroom area, I do think it'll pull kids that are, they might be doing part-time school and part-time therapy, and that will allow us to spread even more so the start and end times out a little bit. So maybe what I can do is kind of arrange kind of a mock therapy schedule and what that might look like as far as traffic. But Frank is right. You know, we look to serve kids in a way that's different than other therapy centers. We want to make sure that they're coming into something that feels like school or feels a little bit like home. And this is just a dream property to make a difference in kids and families' lives. So we'll do whatever we need to make you all feel comfortable with that traffic piece.
Very good. So I think you said it well, but and specifically, I think we would like to understand that, you know, really it's the number of cars. That's what we're really concerned about. And so number of cars coming in at what times of the day, number of cars leaving at what times of the day, light pollution, and then if there's an opportunity to educate your neighbors, the remonstrators we spoke to, or speak with them and see if they have any additional current concerns that would help alleviate their concerns, that would certainly make our decision easier and clearer. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
Just a real quick, one more comment before we go. Sorry, I don't want to keep everybody forever, but on I don't know if it makes a difference to anybody else, but in thinking about traffic issues, the bigger group that all comes together or close together, the 20 or 25, I don't know if that time is flexible, whether that could be moved out of rush hour, if that even makes it worse for other members or not. But I keep going with that group all arriving at once during rush hour could be something.
Right. And kind of to Lindsay's point, you know, we can make it to where we have, you know, 10 clients that start at 8 and then another at 8:30 or 9. Like I said, personally at 8:30, I've been behind 1 or 2 cars coming down that road, not 267, but Whitestown Parkway. But we can definitely look at staggering those start times. Jeff, is you know, it's like Lindsay mentioned, it's well within our control. We try not to put in any unnecessary barriers onto families that are trying to seek treatment. And again, I don't think it will necessarily address the massive amount of traffic for the warehouses that are north, but
yeah, certainly that's not your burden. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to continue this petition.
Mr. Wolf, just to inform you that one of the other remonstrators has raised their hand.
You know, thank you, Roger. At this time, I'm going to end public conversation, and we're going to move forward with a motion to continue, as I understand it, and then we will certainly allow the public, after Mr. Knez has spoken and worked with the neighbors, hopefully, and come up with a solution, we'll certainly entertain public comment at the next hearing.
John, I'd just like to point out that one of the comments we keep hearing about the Zoom meeting format is that we as commission members don't get a sense of a read of an audience. Hence, I would vote if somebody wants to speak, speak. Let them speak.
I'm amenable to that if everyone else is. I'm trying to move the conversation forward. We still have more petitions.
We do.
Quick show of hands. We don't need a formal vote. Would you prefer if we continue the public comment for, assuming a brief second? All those in favor, just show you. Okay, we got 3. All right. Sorry, Roger. I'm going to change my position on this one.
All right.
I am promoting D. Kudus.
Hello, this is Star and Dan again. Thank you for hearing our comment. I do appreciate that, as this is an unconventional way to have our voices heard. And I just wanted to voice a little bit more that the R1 zoning is a concern. And I asked the council to please just imagine you find your dream home, you want to live there with your family, you have this rural setting, I have my horses in the backyard. You don't want to continue to see the commercialization getting crept up more and more. And that is why we joined this township. That's why we wanted to be a part of this, because we were hoping that this would slow down then at least. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we didn't talk about this, but I'm not sure. I assume the petitioner has been at least advised by staff that the use variance probably also comes with a sunset clause or a trial period or whatever you want to look at it, and that's not something we got into, but there's certainly would be that element included in any approval if it were to be approved. So I bring that up only for his benefit, that if he hasn't heard it from staff, he would hear it here eventually.
Yes, so to speak specifically, we've asked the petitioner to come back with some information for us to help us make a better decision. One of the things that you may want to include is we do, when granting the use variance, you are granting an exception to the rules, and we think we're making a good choice, but we don't know we're making a good choice. And so we oftentimes put a sunset period on those decisions. And what it allows us to do is to revisit that choice after we have more information or after we've seen the property in use for a few years. And what we have found is that sometimes neighbors come back and say it's been a non-issue. They've been great neighbors and we're glad it's added value to our community. And sometimes maybe it goes the other way. But I think we would probably explore that idea if we were to move favorably forward with this. And we do respect the fact that you've got business loans and continuity plans. So if we were to put a sunset period on this particular variance, then we would be respectful that you could operate your business effectively and it would be a non-issue for getting loans. It would just allow us a little stopgap and a little check to make sure that we're making good choices. So with that, I will entertain a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion that I move the docket 2020-19-UV. Whoops, I just minimized my screen here. A use variance to permit a medical office use, specifically providing outpatient pediatric therapy services, including speech, occupational, physical, and applied behavioral analysis therapy as a primary use at 3850 Whitestown Parkway, to be continued to the September meeting.
Very good. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote on the continuance.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Campins?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Mundy?
Aye.
Thank you. This petition will be heard in September. For those members of our community who participated in tonight's conversation, thank you for your feedback. We certainly appreciate it. It helps us make a more informed decision. I would encourage you to participate in the September 2nd meeting as well. I would also encourage you, if you have the opportunity to work with our petitioner, please do so and see if we can find an amendable solution for all parties. With that, we're going to move on to docket number 2020-20-DSV for the property located at 1669 South 900 East.
I'm promoting Doug Simon as a panelist.
Mr. Simon, can you hear us?
We can hear you. My camera has been working fine, but doesn't appear to be.
Well, you've got a lovely background picture right now, so as long as we can hear you, we can probably make a good choice.
Okay.
Mr. Simon, will you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes. My name is Doug Simon. My wife, Linda Simon, is here with me. We reside at 1669 South 900 East, Zionsville.
Very good. And what petition do we have in front of us?
We're petitioning for a development standard variance in order to build a 32 by 14 pole barn in which to store our travel trailer.
And as I understood the property, are you guys getting a bunch of feedback?
Yes.
Mr. Simon, it's lovely to see you. Will you try to turn off your camera?
Sure.
Let's see if that.
Wait, okay, it's off.
Oh, it's off.
Yeah, it is off. I think the feedback has gone away.
Okay.
Does everyone agree? Okay. Nope, no problem. Mr. Simon, as I understood the property, you have a pole barn on the property, and you hope to make is this an extension or a new structure that will house the RV?
We have a large detached garage, but this is a new structure that will be built alongside that detached garage, specifically for the purposes of storing the RV.
Okay. And as I look through the numbers, you currently reside, how large is your property? 6 acres?
6 acres.
And I think what the end of the ask is that you are asking to exceed the ordinance by 392 square feet of what you're allowed in accessory structures. Is that what you understand to be true?
That's correct.
Okay. And any intention to put plumbing or HVAC in this new structure?
No, this will be a steel-sided pole barn with a large opening at one end, which will eventually have a door, and then a human door on the side at the far end. No electricity, no plumbing is planned for the structure.
Very good. And is the RV that you're storing, is it a fifth wheel? Is it what kind of RV?
A tandem wheel travel trailer, approximately 23 feet long.
Very good. What questions do we have for the petitioner tonight?
You mentioned it's going to be built alongside the existing garage.
That's correct.
What is the existing garage? What kind of materials is that made of?
It's a fully framed 2x4 framing with a slab and siding that matches the existing house.
Okay.
Could everyone understand? Laura, your audio was all garbled for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's just that it has a strange sound.
Oh, so.
Mr. Simon, I think where she was going maybe is what is the planned siding of this particular structure?
The siding of this will be metal.
Okay.
So it won't be the T1 siding that is on the adjacent garage. It will be a similar in color and paint scheme and so forth, so as to blend in as much as possible with the existing structure.
And as I look at your property, you're pretty far back. It would be imagined that I had difficulty seeing your home.
Yeah.
It would imagine that it would be difficult for the neighbors to see this structure. Is that true as well?
Yeah, only a handful of neighbors will actually be able to see the structure. Probably maybe 4 of the adjoining neighbors, if they look hard enough.
What other questions do we have tonight? If there's no questions at this time, are there any remonstrators here to speak for or against this particular petition? I'm sorry, Mr. Simon?
Yes.
I keep forgetting this. Did you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Doug Simon. I reside at 1669 South 900 East, Zionsville, 46077. My wife, Linda Simon, is actually the property owner.
Very good. Okay. With that formality out of the way, if I forgot it earlier, I apologize. Are there any remonstrators here to speak for or against this particular petition?
Mr. Wolf, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. With that, can we have the staff report?
Thank you. Staff is supportive of the petition as it's been submitted. Certainly staff identifies and recognizes the size of the property, the configuration of the property, the distance the property is. The improvements are from the roadway. Certainly this is, in essence, the increasing of a footprint to provide for the storage of a vehicle that otherwise would be parked, stored on the property, out of doors. This is certainly providing for a small addition to an accessory structure. It does reduce the any sort of mitigating views or issues neighbors may have with a recreational vehicle being stored on the property. It pulls it into a covered structure and blends it in with the rest of the improvements. Staff again is supportive of the petition as it's been filed, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. I have one brief question, and I looked and I couldn't find any information. Is there any ordinance that would prevent them from storing an RV outside? I know I have an HOA that would prevent me from doing it, but it is the homeowners and not an ordinance. Is there anything that would prevent someone from storing a vehicle like this outside?
In the rural area, we have, I believe the rules would support the ongoing parking of a recreational vehicle on a property when it's associated with other improvements. The problem we've run into is if somebody has two, or in some cases, somebody has bought two tiny homes and has parked them on their property. There's multiple other scenarios, but I believe the ordinance would support one on the property.
Yeah, my opinion with it, this would be a more aesthetically pleasing to look at. The structure would be more aesthetically pleasing than an RV, although I'm sure it's a lovely RV. It's just nice to have those things covered. Any questions for staff? And if not, any comments or discussion amongst the group? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I was muted. I move that docket number 2020-20-DSV development standards variance in order to provide for the construction of a detached barn which, one, exceeds the allowable accessory square footage associated with an accessory structure in the rural low density single family and two family residential zoning district R2 be approved based on the findings and based on staff report and presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Papa. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Can we please have a roll call vote?
And Ms. Campins?
Laura, you're muted. There you are. Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Mundy?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Motion carries. Mr. and Mrs. Simon, good luck with your new project.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all your time, and especially Chrissy, your patience in guiding me through this this process.
Yeah, you were amazing.
Yes.
We are fortunate to have such talented staff here in Zionsville. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good luck. The next item on our agenda is docket number 2020-21 DSV for the property of 1025 South 900 East. Could we please promote the petitioner?
I'm promoting Anne Marie Buibisch. If you could please state your name and your address.
Hi, Anne Marie Buibisch. Do you want my address or I'm a petitioner for my neighbor, Zandra Hamilton. My address is 1135 South 900 East. And Zandra's is 1025 South 900 East Zionsville.
Thank you, Ms. Boybish. Will you please describe in your words what's in front of us tonight?
Yes. My neighbor, Zandra, is with me here. She has lived on a 10-acre parcel here in Zionsville since 1966. And she has decided to move to a warmer climate. And so she would like to sell her property. And to do that, she's requesting a split of the home and the outbuildings in 3 acres. And then a separate parcel will be the 7-acre parcel. And that we're requesting a variance on the depth to width ratio for that parcel.
Okay, so what we have in front of us is a 10-acre parcel that we're trying to split into 2, and what it creates is a depth. When we do that, it creates a depth to width ratio issue, correct?
That is correct on one of the parcels. The other
Okay.
parcel has sufficient frontage and width.
Okay, very good. And can you which the structures that are existing, they will be on the smaller parcel?
Yes, it's the home and the there's 2 barns of 2 outbuildings. All of those will be on the 3-acre parcel.
And the larger parcel is the one that we're creating the depth to width ratio with.
That is correct. That's the tillable farmland currently, and that is the depth to width variance we're looking for.
Okay, I understand. Is the intent to keep that 7-acre parcel tillable, or is it, what is the intent with that parcel?
Currently, that is the plan, to keep it, to protect some wildlife, but eventually there could be a home put on that, but we don't have any plans for that currently.
Okay. What questions as a group do we have for Ms. Boybish?
So are you looking to sell the 3 acres with the land or with the house on it, or is that the intent?
Yes.
And then retain the 7 acres?
No, she's selling them both.
Oh, she's selling them both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The house is fairly small, 1,600 square foot. So as we talked about in the findings of fact, really, for someone who wants a 1,600 square foot home, that's a pretty large parcel of land in this area. Can be kind of out of their price range. So the house in 3 acres with that 1,600 square foot home actually is a little more reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
So the challenge you have is that a modest, the price and the modesty of a 1,600 square foot home would be unmarketable on the price for a 10-acre lot?
Yes, if I understand what you're saying.
I'm not sure I said it very well, but
yeah,
I think
so,
we're speaking.
Yeah, I mean, look at a 1,600 square foot home. You're talking about a young couple, a young family, and you're talking about potentially, if it were all together, 10 acres in Zionsville, and that's a pretty expensive. That would be out of the price range of a lot of young families.
Very good. What other questions do we have for the petitioner?
If this were approved, Wayne, I assume that the owner of the 7-acre parcel then could build a home. It probably is very expensive land to farm for 7 acres. So I assume that it would, someone who would be interested in buying it would be building a house. They would be allowed to do that. There wouldn't have to be any variances or exceptions made.
Based upon the actions of this board, if that would, it potentially would be, that action would be potentially be facilitated by your approval tonight, if that is the outcome.
We don't need any other information from the petitioner at this time. I would I would ask that if we have any remonstrators to speak for or against this particular petition.
Mr. Wolf, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Wayne, can we have the staff report?
Certainly, and I think I can cover it fairly succinctly. The matter is a petition that you see often. This is a development pattern that has been established in this area. The petitioner is asking for accommodations, if you will, that are not exceeding what others are enjoying in the immediate area. Staff is supportive of the petition that's been filed, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions for staff or discussion amongst the group?
Does dividing it up that way make it any less or more likely that a multi-home project would go in there in the future?
Certainly, as staff would not necessarily evaluate projects on a dollar and return on investment basis, but I can, much like Mr. Mundy pointed out about return on investment for somebody to farm the 7 acres, for somebody to purchase the ground, make the investment to divide it up, it's not unreasonable to see that happen. The return on investment might make it not very feasible.
And we're not approving that. I mean, you know, essentially that would have to come back and go through the planning commission, et cetera, correct?
Correct. Any sort of division more than likely would require additional variances from any number of standards. And so it would look to visit the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Correct. And yeah.
Just to add a little bit, if anybody was around for the conversation about Wolf Run, one of the issues is that they were talking about bringing sanitary sewer up through this area to service Wolf Run. That thing developed had gone through, and one of the concerns is that it would create demand for all these kind of lots to be then further subdivided and more housing and more development. And there was a general comment from residents of the areas that they didn't particularly want to see that happen. I have a feeling the same groups would come out if somebody wanted to subdivide this parcel down and have the same issue of no sanitary.
Yeah, I think I was thinking it made it less likely. In doing this, it makes it slightly less likely that happens.
Yeah, agreed. It would be easier to divide up 10 acres than it would be to divide up 7 acres.
All right, it should have been more clear. That's the point I was trying to make.
And if you look at the property, it makes sense. The division lines make sense. Any other questions or comments or discussion amongst the group? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that docket number 2020-21-DSV development standard variance in order to allow a lot split of 10 acres into a 3 plus or minus and a 7 plus or minus acre lot in which one lot will not meet the lot width to depth ratio of 3:1 in the rural low density single family residential zoning district R1 be approved based on the findings and the staff report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Papa. Let's do a roll call vote.
Certainly. Mr. Jones?
Larry, did you say aye?
Yes, aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Mundy?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Campins?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck going forward.
All right. And I also want to thank Chrissy for her help. She was great. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
And Ms. Hamilton, good luck going south. Next item on our agenda is docket number 2020-22-SE for the property located at 7601 South Indianapolis Road. Will the petitioner's representative please come forward?
Promoting Mr. Andreoli.
Hello?
Mr. Andreoli, are you there?
I am, thank you.
Very good. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Mike Andreoli, 1393 West Oak Street, Zionsville, Indiana. I represent Josh Abnauer, who's the owner of the C&J Well Company. They operate on 96th Street in Zionsville. They also have an office, corporate office over in Pittsburgh. They're looking to expand and have an additional site up on 7601 South Indianapolis Road. That property had been utilized. It's currently zoned as an I-1 district. It had been utilized for a number of years and operated by an entity that actually permitted and utilized it for outside storage, which is prohibited under the I-1 classification. My client has an option to buy that. Originally, when they came in and we looked at it, it looks like they may not have to get a special exception for this under the categories of perhaps light industry or light warehousing. But in consultation with staff, I think they correctly and rightly suggested that in order to maintain an appropriate classification, probably contractor storage would be the appropriate classification for this use, and that required a special exception. So my client, in order to be cautious and wanting to comply with the requirements of the town, asked me to go ahead and file an application for a special exception for this site. 5+ acre site, there are various buildings on it. It has not been maintained very well over the years. There's fencing in there that my client plans on trying to repair. Some of the buildings have been degraded, and I'm sure he will utilize those buildings and upgrade those buildings as he moves forward with this, assuming he would get approval for this special exception. He will look at this in the future with regard to an expansion. However, if he does that, he'll have to file a development plan application, building permits, and those types of things. So he'll have to go back to the town if there's going to be any expansion of buildings on there to file a development plan to make sure that they appropriately fit. And if he needs any variances for that, he'll have to come back to the board itself. He understands that in this classification for contractor storage, there will be no outside storage of materials or product. In addition, C&J is made up of a number of different components. They have a soft water component that treats commercial and residential structures. They will utilize the buildings on site primarily for that use at the Indianapolis Roads site. In addition to that, from time to time, they will store well drilling equipment and those types of things at the site, but all of those will be stored inside. There will be no outside storage of either product, materials, or equipment of any sort. All of that will be stored in the buildings themselves. And so I think I can hit my video, hopefully there at. So all of those things will be stored inside. Basically, I think the staff report does a pretty good job of covering all of the concerns and the requirements. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have, or answer any questions that the general public may have. I must tell you, we've sent out several letters. We have not heard anything ourselves, but that's not to say or suggest that members of the public might not weigh in this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andreoli. So my first question would be, and you just used the word storage over and over again, on a day-to-day basis, this facility will just to hold equipment and materials. There will be no, I don't know, construction or value add services done. It's just really a storage facility.
No, they will maintain an office there, and they will have staff there. They don't anticipate any signage. If they do, they're going to have to come in and make application for signage through the normal channels. They don't anticipate that, but they have individuals there, probably not more than 3 at any point in time, to deal with their water softener operation. Most of their equipment with regard to well drilling will be stored primarily in the Pittsburgh area, or if they store any equipment, it'll all be inside, will not be kept outside. Regardless of whether they have fencing or not, fencing will not do it. They simply cannot be allowed outside storage. So you're right, John. There'll be no materials. There'll be no equipment. They may have cars out there that they park for their staff and those types of things, but there will be no equipment, no materials. And if they do any of those things, they will be in violation of your ordinance, because your ordinance prohibits those things in the I-1 district.
Very good. What other questions do we have for the petitioner's representative? Having an awkward pause. Are there any members of our public who wish to speak for or against this particular petition?
We do have one hand raised for the Knotts family. I am promoting them to a panelist.
Great, thank you. Knott's family, are you there? We see you. Can't hear your voice. I still can't hear you. In the lower left-hand corner, check the mute button, and then if you click the down arrow next to the mute button, it should specify which microphone it is using on your computer. It's a little drop-down menu. You may check and see it's using the correct one. Still not working. Okay. So I think maybe what we should do is, do you have the number in front of you that you can call on the from a cell phone, or we won't be able to see you, but we'll still be able to hear you. And if you don't have it, Roger, you may cue that up if you have it close to you.
I do have it. It appears she has it though.
Okay. Now, I've never done this. This will be interesting.
We may get an echo, maybe not.
That didn't work either. You can type if you what you're experiencing. You can type in the chat message, and we can maybe try to troubleshoot. So that should be a little bubble in the bottom, voice bubble in the bottom.
She's asking for the number.
Yeah.
Hey.
I've got it, Chris, if you need it.
Roger, do you?
The phone number is 1-312-626-8255. 6799. And if you are asked for a webinar ID, that number is 864-6721-9946. There we have received a phone number. Going to allow it.
Okay.
Okay, I think I can hear you. Okay, who's doing that? Is that me? Hang on a second. Let me mute me. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so my question would be, because my house is directly right in front of the business. And when I looked the business up online, it said that its hours were 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. As a homeowner, I would be concerned if you had an emergency with drilling equipment coming through, that they would need to come get this equipment at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning and having people coming in and out. I know that they've probably already purchased this. That's probably one of the biggest concerns. And the other one would be making sure that the fence is repaired, because since it has been vacant, people are going in and damaging the fence. I've called the police a couple times on people stealing fence pieces, which I don't even understand why they would do that, but they were taking pieces of the fence off and sticking it in their car and leaving. So I'm concerned about the amount of traffic and the hours. If it's during normal business hours, I'm perfectly fine with that, just not 24/7, 7 days a week.
Thank you. I'm trying to avoid feedback. Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Jennifer Knotts, Knotts, 7729 Tanager Court, Zionsville, Indiana. We're in the Eagles Nest subdivision, but we're included in the Eagles Nest section 10, which is the front 26 homes. We're separate from Eagles Nest.
Very good, thank you. And if I could restate your concerns, one was the hours of operation, and two was that the fence be repaired. You've seen, and hopefully that will happen, but also hopefully if it's occupied, it will be improved. But let's let Mr. Androli address those issues. Thank you. Mike, you're muted.
Those are fair questions. As far as the fence are concerned, we will commit to repairing that fence. It's in terrible shape. I talked to Josh the other day. He noticed the same thing. Just in the span of time that he ended up putting an offer on the property until the meeting tonight, he noticed pieces of the fence missing. And he doesn't get it as to why anybody would do that. But the bottom line is a lot of it's run down, and we would make a commitment to the board and as part of the approval process that we would go ahead and get that fence repaired. It needs to be repaired. It's unsightly, and I don't think you'll want to maintain an operation with a fence that looks like that. So I don't think that will be a problem when we'll do that. As far as the hours of operation, most of the operation here will be his water softener operation, where he'll store his product for the water softener. Most of those types of businesses, unless there was a true emergency of some sort, most of those calls were run during normal business operations. His well drilling equipment could run every day of the week. In the summertime, not so much in the wintertime, but every day of the week. When they have opportunities to drill water wells, they will do it. But he is not going to maintain the bulk of his operation of well drilling equipment there. And if he does, all of that will be located in the buildings themselves and not outside. And I might suggest to you, if it's any consolation, if not, have the dialogue with me so that I can pass that along to Josh. He only believes he could get maybe 2 pieces of well drilling equipment in that building with all of the other storage that he's going to have. The buildings currently on site will only house so much. Some of those buildings aren't really very good. And the bigger building would be a building that he might be able to house a truck or 2 of the well drilling at most. And he's got many, many of those at his other locations. So we don't anticipate that's going to be a large part of the operation. One other thing, I think it would be helpful for you to understand, if he decides for some reason he's going to expand the operation by adding additional buildings, he's going to have to file a development plan proposal with the town for the town to review that before he builds anything or does anything. If you're still living there, you will be given notice of that, because if he's going to substantially change his operation to include more well drilling things, that may be something you're concerned about, may want to address when he does that. Right now, he just doesn't have the space to do that, and he won't be able to have more than a couple at any time, if that, in the current building. I hope I've answered your question.
Okay. So I think what I heard.
You did answer my questions, and I'm on the board of directors for the Eagles Nest Section 10 for those 26 homes. So I appreciate your update, and I do appreciate the letter. So when we were notified about this, I wanted to make sure that as a board member and a homeowner that I was on the call.
Well, you can think very highly of me for sending a letter to you, but it's required by this board. So I can't take credit for that.
Ms. Knotts, thank you for participating in our conversation tonight. Those are very valid concerns. And Mr. Andreoli, I think I heard you commit to fixing the fence and making it.
That was in the plans, and so that there's no misunderstanding about that, we'll commit to getting that fence repaired. He may repair it, or he may just decide to put up a whole new one, or he may just take it down and clean up the site. But either way, the dilapidated fence will be repaired or removed.
Very good. And I also heard, I think the primary intent of this facility is for the water softener storage, and your anticipation is that that's not a 24/7 emergency. That's more of a standard business hour operation.
Yes. He has really expanded his water softener business in the last several years, and this was a primary focus of what he was doing with that site. But if he's got a job at a particular time, he may want to store the well drilling equipment rather from Pittsburgh, just from an economic standpoint, store it in that building overnight and then use it the next morning when business hours open. So
very good. Okay. Roger, are there anyone, Ms. Knotts participated, is there anyone else who is looking to participate at this time?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, very good. Wayne, it may be appropriate to have the staff report.
Certainly. Staff, as indicated in the report, is supportive of the petition as filed. The main point, as focused on by Mr. Andreoli, I think one of many would be the potential for outdoor storage. Certainly appreciate the dialogue this evening related to that topic. Certainly, as the zoning ordinance supports grandfathered outdoor storage. So certainly, I don't know if the intention here in the future, if that's being foreclosed or certainly abandoned, but certainly the ordinance would allow in perpetuity the outdoor storage on this parcel if it could be proven through a legal non-conforming use process. Whatever outdoor storage was there, January 2nd, 2010 is the date that you would look back at. But certainly this dialogue seems to be focused on there's no interest in outdoor storage. Certainly if that happens in the future, there'd be a future conversation, and certainly any expansion of the operation to include a new building would be something that the Plan Commission would vet and through the process as described by Mr. Andreoli. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed and certainly described tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions for staff? Any discussion amongst the group? Hearing no discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Motion. Move that docket 2020-22-SE special exception to permit the subject site addressed as 7601 Indianapolis Road and the existing buildings on the subject site be utilized for contractor storage in Industrial 1 Rural Zoning District I-1 be approved as filed based upon the findings of fact as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Papa. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Let's do a roll call vote.
Certainly. Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Mundy?
Steve, you're muted.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Campins?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. I would like to suggest that Chrissy and Mr. DeLong and Mr. Kilmer could not have been more difficult to work with.
I've heard that.
This process, I just had to get it back to reality. Thank you, Chrissy and Roger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderoli. All right. Next item on our agenda is other matters to be considered, and we actually have an update, which is pretty darn exciting. Who gets the privilege of providing us that update?
I would promote Chrissy to that opportunity.
Okay, so it's been quite some time, I believe, almost 2 years now, for the Wildwood Designs docket number 2018-19-DSV. They have been working, according to them, over the last year to 2 years with obtaining drainage easements and various different things that neighbors were concerned with, ultimately ending up selling part of the land to the neighbor adjoining the parcel, and therefore the acreage has been minimized and their project is now off the table. So they would like to thank everybody for their time, but they're no longer moving forward with the project.
Well, that's been some time. And Darren, maybe you could speak to this, but the parcel that we approved is no longer, or the lot that is no longer, I mean, it's been subdivided. So the variance is just gone?
Yeah, technically the variance, I mean, it's still out there, but they've changed the property. It's dead in the water. They wouldn't be able to move forward with it.
Okay. So I think we can take this one off the agenda for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah.
Very good. Are there any other matters to be considered? Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry, was there?
Sorry, I know we're running late, but I just didn't know if staff knew the answer. This isn't directly related to one of the matters earlier, but Ms. Giles raised a question about why are we calling it Whitestown Parkway? Does the staff know, did we rename that from 650 South? I know Whitestown put a sign there in our territory, but did we rename it? Does anybody know?
I think we're just providing information directly from the GIS.
Which I think came from, I mean, it's not a technical point for this board, but since it was raised, I was just curious that I think west of 400 is Zionsville, and I don't know that we ever actually renamed that from 650 South, which was, I think, the point Ms. Giles made earlier.
Yes, we can look into it. Of course, there's the challenges of what road is managed by whom. But yeah, like I said,
and for consistency's sake too, it's a very short span of road. I just wondered if how that ever got resolved. Okay, thanks.
Let's look into it. Yeah, the other item very briefly is just the Montessori school negative findings of fact, just looking to secure all the signatures on that document.
Have we, or have we started that signing of that document? I thought we already did that, didn't we? Are we still waiting on somebody?
Are we, we're shy. Is it one more member?
Probably me. Do I need to come in and sign?
Mr. Jones, we're going to start sending you nasty grams.
Well, I mean, just say it. All right.
Yes,
so I gotta
please.
Huh?
Yes, please. If you have time, that would
So
be
can I
great.
walk in the building?
You'll be visiting the white truck in the parking lot.
Oh, I see. So you're going to put me in the white van in the parking lot. Yeah, all right. You know, guys, it's a lot.
Larry, I'm
Get the
As long as
Buick,
I get some candy.
get the Buick top down and drive in.
Larry, I'm happy to send you that email again that will tell you where the white truck is parked in the parking lot.
Van. Just guided into the white van. Oh, we all knew it'd end this way, didn't we?
All right. With no other matters to be discussed, this meeting's adjourned. We'll see you in a month.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.